Aham. Jai Jinendra to everyone. My name is Rajiv Shah, and on behalf of JVB London, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Wenda Shehata, who with a partner, Matthew, founded the Hugletts Wood Vegan Animal Sanctuary in 1995.
If you want to see me. Thank you very much for allowing me to come today to talk about the rescued animals and how we live, and to share with you a little bit about our lives. Not that they're anything special, but they are different in this day and age. I founded Hugletts Wood Farm Animal Sanctuary in 1995 after having lived 3 months on the dockside in Shoreham, protesting against live exports. I thought all the time that I was doing that there had to be something more positive that would encourage people to look at other life forms more differently. So in 1995, the first 4 cows were rescued from slaughter, and they came to live with us at a tiny rented farm that we had, only 12 acres. And we cared for them, and slowly more animals came to us. And by the end of the first year, we had 25 animals. So we thought the best thing that we could do would be to find somewhere that we could live with them and do what we'd always wanted to do, which was live very, very simply, to stop living the materialistic life of the 21st century and to actually live how we were talking we should live. So we made the move in 1998, having cared for the animals for 3 years on the small farm. I sold my house in Brighton, which fortunately was able to fund the purchase of the sanctuary here, and we came to live. The place here had absolutely nothing: no running water, no hot water even, no form of heating, no power. And to our way of thinking, although it was very, very difficult at first, it was really what we wanted. We didn't want to use fossil fuels. We didn't want to take from Bhumima, from the earth, from the planet, if we could live more simply and more gently. So we started a process of simple living, high thinking, in that we took little, but we aspired for a lot. In the photograph here, you'll see that we were building one of the goshalas, one of the cow barns for the rescued cows. We do all the work ourselves here. Even though we're maturing now, we tend to make sure that we're not expending Lakshmi, not expending money on things that are not essential. So if we can physically do something, we do it. It's very, very rare that there is something that either one of us can't do. So along with our philosophy of building everything, of living simply, we utilize a lot of the gifts, as we call them, from the cows. We make natural products. You can see goba cakes, and the balls are for Om Triambakam, which we practice here every day. On the right-hand side, you'll see the containers that are for the plant food. We make a natural plant food with Agnihotra ash, with water, ash water, with goba, and we put it together so that it ferments. And we bring it out through the taps, and then we water it down, and we use it to feed the vegetables, to feed the plants, to feed the trees, to feed the fruit trees, rather than buy in chemicals. It's something that we do. We try always to look at the most gentle, simple options when we're doing something on the farm. If we have to buy in, it's very, very rare. I can't remember the last time that we actually resorted to bringing in something that wasn't created here. We tend to not use electrical appliances. We have no 42-inch flat screen television. In fact, we don't have a television at all. We don't have a fridge, we don't have a freezer. We bring those in when we have open days and people have to have chilled and cooled foods. We make everything fresh. We prepare prasadam 3 times a day. We eat simply. We always eat wherever possible if we're here before dusk. It's something that's come to us naturally. We're not born Jain. We don't try to follow Jain principle. It is just an automatic thing for us that the way we live and Jain philosophy go hand in hand. And to us, it's very, very natural that we live this way, that we tend to consider everything, all forms of life. We have very, very few material possessions. We came here with 1 knife and 1 fork and 1 spoon each, 1 plate, 1 cup, 1 saucer, 1 bowl, and we had 3 saucepans. We consciously gave up, renounced everything. This was our opportunity to live simply when we first came here in 1998. And we've stuck to it. Sadly for us, we have to cater for visitors. So over the years, we've added lots more things than we really want, but they're kept safe, they're stored away, and they're brought out simply when we have people come that we have to feed and that we have to cook for. Other than that, we live incredibly simply. We do everything ourselves, as I said before. We don't have help. It's very, very hard, we've discovered in the UK, probably in the whole of Europe, to find like-minded people who are capable or who wish to work as we do. We do everything manually. We try very, very hard not to resort to machinery because the problems that are caused harming different sensed beings when we're resorting to machinery is unforgivable. There are times, however, we do have a telehandler, we do have a tractor. We have to utilize these things, such as lifting bales of hay for the cows, feeding them, bringing in hay, straw, bags of feed. But the use of these things is very, very limited. We're both incredibly strong, even though we're very mature now, and we tend quite happily to use our bodies to perform tasks that we have to do every day of the week. We have always said that the use of fossil fuels here is something we should never consider. We rely on solar power. We have a very small wind turbine that we actually checked through because we'd heard such dreadful stories about birds flying into wind turbines. We spoke to friends we know who were actually involved in the research regarding bird deaths and wind turbines. And they assured us that a turbine our size would appear like a hard surface to a bird flying, and therefore they would avoid making contact with the turbine. So that solved a problem of power. So in winter, there are very, very few days where there's no light enough to use solar panels, or there's not wind, so we can use the wind turbine. Such days, we unfortunately have to resort to charging our batteries by the use of a generator. Probably 5 or 6 days a year, we have to run a generator for 2 or 3 hours. We're battling to overcome this. we will achieve a life without any reliance on the petrochemical industry or the fossil fuels. Until that time, we have to satisfy ourselves that 5 days out of 365, maybe in the 21st century or 2021, isn't such a bad thing. It displeases us because we feel that we should have the knowledge. We're both university educated people. We should have the knowledge. Matthew is a very clever, clear-thinking man who can create solutions for the biggest of our problems, but we've yet to overcome this. we believe we're very much all a part of nature. In today's world, we're so evolved, humankind has evolved to the point that we consider ourselves above nature. We consider ourselves superior to nature, or that we're different somehow. But here at Hugletts Wood, we tend to, excuse me, my phone's going. We tend to accept the fact that we're all here for a reason. We're all here to interact with each other. We see ourselves as a part of nature, not a dominant part, but a useful part. We're able to facilitate a lot of things here that the animals themselves wouldn't be able to facilitate. So we tend to just live alongside the animals. We have 4 herds of cows. We care for 3 flocks of sheep. We have birds, rescued birds. We have cats here. With each of them, we play a different role, but we're not separate from them. We live with nature. We live with the trees. We live with the plants. We live with the wild animals. We live with the grass. So really, we're just a part of this life here, of the sanctuary. We're certainly not separate to it. We depend on each other for different things. And I think when one lives in a city or one lives a material life, the beliefs and the acceptance of being just a simple part of nature, they dissipate. There's no reason to think this way when one walks along pavements, when one takes buses, when one is not living a life where there is a predominance of nature. It's something that even I myself had to adapt to, because when we first came here, as I said before, there was no water. We had to have the water. In fact, we laid the pipes for the water ourselves, and we had water brought onto the sanctuary. We wanted to dig a spring, but unfortunately, the laws of this country are such that the water companies ask for huge amounts of money just to allow you to bore a hole to take natural water from the water table. I think we were asked for £40,000, and that was 20 odd years ago. So we said no, we would forego the idea of a spring, and we would have water piped on. We didn't want to waste the water that was being brought to us, so we started to recycle grey water. We use that to water the flowers and the trees in times of drought. And I say drought, sometimes we can go 6, 7, 8 weeks in summer without any rainfall. And there are all sorts of hose pipe restrictions put on everybody. So we use our wonderful supply of what we call grey water, which is water that we save from washing up or from bathing. We're careful about what sort of detergents we use and soaps that we use. In fact, I make our own soap, so I know exactly what goes into it and that there's nothing harmful. We spend our whole lives balancing on knife's edge so that we do, or we consider so much that is deleterious to nature, that could harm the environment, that could not be good for the animals. So we tread carefully. You'll hear me say this probably 1,000 times while I'm talking to you. We tread carefully. We consider our actions. To be honest, we walk on grass. We have to walk on grass to be with the cows. They walk on grass. But we tend to tread carefully. And we go at times of day where the invertebrates, worms, beetles, bugs, will not be close to the surface of the grass. If one studies carefully, there are times of the day where insects and other invertebrates are very, very busy on the surface of the grass, and other times they retire low. And normally when it's hot, they stay low in the ground, so we won't harm them. It's a very simple way of living. It just just requires a little thought. It's just, it took me probably 3 or 4 years to get to the point that I could understand nature, that I learned to work with nature. Matthew, when he was younger, he lived in Africa, so he grew up spending most of his time at the bush, and he was used to more nature than I was. I grew up in North Africa, and I grew up in cities. My father was a diplomat, so I lived a very, what one would call, a normal life. Matthew was wild. He was free. His parents were working for the government, the British government, helping for independence in various countries. And he was allowed to follow his own devices. So he was able to learn an awful lot more than I had by the time we came here. But I learned quickly, and I developed. I, to this day, don't know how I survived cold showers in winter, but we did it until we started to put in water heaters so that we could have hot water. It was essential because there are times we have to have boiling water for sterilization if we're treating the animals. I think if it hadn't been for the animals, we would probably still be taking cold showers now, or I would have died and left my body, because it is not an easy thing to do in English winters, but we survived it. I can't deny there were times I would sit on the steps of the house, and I would ask why I had to suffer so much and to lose so many different creature comforts just to achieve a life of harmlessness or attempted harmlessness. But I learned. I became used to how we were living. I discovered that it wasn't a hardship to have cold water sometimes. It wasn't difficult to live without television. It did me no harm not to have a fridge or a freezer. It just meant that I had to consider our food. Fortunately, we grow most of our food, and I can adapt to whatever is being grown at the time, and I can prepare meals in my head so that we're not wasting anything, we're not having to store anything, which obviously could become a home for different creatures. We're 20 odd years on now, and we do it most easily and in a straightforward way. It's taken a lot of time to find the right way of doing things, but we're nearly there. We believe that all life is equal. Granted, there are different levels of life, from 1 sense beings to 5 sense. To us, if we care for 5 sense beings, then we have to care for everyone and everything else. We want everything to be able to live without fear or pain or hunger. We need to survive in an atmosphere of respect and care, regardless of whatever body or form anyone is in. And to this end, when we work the land, we work at times, as I said before, when the sun is up and those who inhabit the soil go down into the soil for coolness. So we're able to work with the vegetables and the plants. I have a dreadful reputation for not pulling out plants that have shed their fruit or that we have taken from them. I like things to die down naturally. So at times of year, we have a vegetable garden full of dead and dying things. And people who visit us are quite shocked, because I think it's the normal way of doing things in Europe, especially, that as soon as something has stopped fruiting or the leaves have shriveled, one pulls them out by the roots. If we can avoid that, we won't do it. And it means that the creatures that are living around the roots of the plants are not pulled out of the ground to lose their habitat and probably their lives. They're allowed to inhabit the roots and the lower parts of the plants once we've used them, or the animals have used them. and they can naturally vacate that habitat when the plant is of no more use to them. We tend to look at the animals who are rescued as our equal. They teach us so much. All life has knowledge. Knowledge sometimes we as humans just don't understand. It's a very wonderful thing to watch animals. I don't know how many of you have access to animals, but even with dogs and cats and creatures that cohabit with us in our homes, in cities even, they all teach us something. And the cows, especially here, are great teachers. They teach us calmness and respect and tolerance. And the other animals who come to us, the sheep, the pigs, the birds, anything that is going to lose its life for people to eat or abuse, they come with such knowledge. Once they've healed, once they've recovered, they tend to teach us lessons we could never learn if we were not living with them. The sanctuary welcomes everyone, not only animals, but we tend to throw our gates open about 4 times a year for people to come and visit. We always say that predominantly we are a sanctuary for animals who have been abused in the production of food, animals who have faced slaughter, those who have been abused, beaten, hurt, mentally damaged. And really our seva has to be for them and their well-being. We've learned over the years that like-minded people want to see the life that we lead, not so much for us, but the animals. They want to meet the animals who've had chance to heal, to live out their lives. We always take visitors out to one of the herds of cows, which is a very wonderful experience for them. A lot of the Westerners that we take, they have no spirituality, which is, it's a Western thing. It's just the way that we're raised in Europe, that we don't look deeply. We're very superficial in our religion, in our way of life. And we're so used to, over the years, finding that people become extremely emotional when they're in a field of 30 or 35 huge big cows who've been allowed to live out their lives, when they're standing with bullocks who are 7 feet tall and weigh nearly 2 tons, who as calves were due to go to the meat pie factory. And they stand there so gently, allowing people to be with them. There's no violence, there's no aggression. There's just a very deep gentleness in these creatures that people who have either recently become vegan or who are vegetarian suddenly realize they're living sentient beings. And they reflect, they think. Those who come here as meat eaters will contact us a few weeks later and say, I was standing with a certain cow or a certain bullock. He changed my life. He made me think. And to us, that is best done by the animals who are rescued, not by us preaching, not by us saying, you must become vegan, you must stop drinking milk, you must stop eating meat. These animals are the teachers. These animals are the ones who came to us when their minds were so damaged with fear, with abuse. Their bodies were racked with pain in some cases where they were beaten. They have in other cases faced slaughter. And then at the last moment, we've managed to get them out of the slaughterhouse and bring them home. And they're the ones who, as I said before, are the best teachers. They're the ones who, through their energy, through their gentleness, through their stoic lifestyle for their forgiveness. They're the ones who say to people, I'm as alive as you are. I feel as you feel. I am 10 times stronger than you. And if I wanted to, I could harm you very badly now. But I have no desire to do that. And the realization that people have of these magnificent creatures being gentle and forgiving is far more than Matthew and I, as I said before, saying to them, you must, you should. It's not for us to say that. It's for us to say, we live this way, and come and share it with us, and then go home and think about it. There are many people who come to us at the end of their lives. When I say us, it sounds very egotistical. I don't mean us, Matthew and me. I mean us collectively as a family of the cows and the rescued animals, of the wildlife, of the forest. We're all one. So sometimes people, as I said, who are approaching the end of their lives, they will come to us and they will spend time here. And we don't promote this place as a healing sanctuary. Naturally, it will heal because there is such beauty here with the rescued animals and nature at its best. But when the people arrive, sometimes they're so close to the end of their lives that they have to come in a hired ambulance. They've heard about here, and they just want to be at one with nature. They want to take this. They want to absorb it. And I don't believe that it's because they think coming here is going to lengthen their lives. They want the peace and the tranquility. They crave the gentleness, I think, away from a busy city. But when they come, they're very, very sick looking. And when they've been here a few hours before they go home, color has returned to their faces. Their eyes are bright. Their essence, their soul is peaceful. And we're happy when people come and they want to be here. And sadly, a few days ago, a man whose bucket list with terminal cancer was to hug a pig. And he had read about Sigri, one of the little pigs, or she's not so little now, a piglet who grew into a big pig, who is quite a character, simply because we raised her as we would a human child. Not intentionally, but I don't know how to raise a piglet. I know how to raise a child. And I thought, well, I'll just raise it as I did my son. And she developed the most amazing personality. It was probably there had I not raised her as a child. But his final desire was just to hug her if she would let him. And sadly, his body had other ideas, and he was admitted to a terminal hospice where they go for the last few days of their lives. He didn't get to see Sigri. But in most cases, people can make it here and they can sit quietly. We leave them to it. We leave them with their carers and let them just soak up whatever they need to take from here. And they can take from here. We have monks who come, renunciates who come, lay people, families, people of different religions. We have our own spiritual path, which doesn't dominate the lives of others. People come with their own faith. They come in their own way. And there is so much here that they can take with them what they need. They can soak up what they desire while they're here, and it leaves us virtually untouched. Nature is abundant. The essence of nature is even more powerful. And this is a place for sharing. In fact, this is the little piglet who I was talking about, who the man wanted to hug. As I said, she's a big pig now. She's a year old. We offer protection for all. We say we offer protection for all. We always say, how can we protect 5 sense beings without considering everybody else? How can we how can we just focus on saving farm animals at the cost of the wildlife who are around us? We can't do that. Everything has to be complete. Every action we take, we have to consider, as I said before. We don't deny any life form in favor of another. We try to make sure that everything and everyone, so even trees, rocks, the ground, the atmosphere, the ecosystem is all protected. This is what I live by. I will never hurt you. And even though here is a photograph of a cow's nose and a person's arm, I have that feeling for everything that is around us. I'm certainly not a good person. I try desperately to be spiritual. I think because I was born in Europe, I find it even harder. I think it's something that so many of us in the West strive for. Jainism, to me, having learned a little bit more about it, although I believe it was there, it was instinctive for us to live in this manner. I find it hard to sometimes understand all the tenets of Jainism. But the one thing I can hold on to is respect for all life forms and not causing harm. Yes, I will, in the course of my lifetime, probably have cost the lives of many, many creatures. Probably not 5-sensed beings. But inadvertently, when I drive, which I do from time to time, things will fly into the windscreen. Things will be damaged as they hurtle towards us. I try desperately to avoid wildlife on the ground. I try to avoid all of the birds that are flying around. I must be an absolute nightmare to drive behind when I'm driving on country lanes, because the minute I see a rabbit appear at the side of the road, I jam my brakes on, and the person behind will probably be cursing me. But it's, I think, a way of life that we really all ought to consider. It's so easy to adapt to a modern day life and leave everything that is reality behind us, because it's easy to live that way. It's easy to swat a fly. It's easy to slap a mosquito if it bites us. But it's not so difficult to rise above that. I've found in my life, even before I came here, that a mosquito bite is just a millisecond, and our reaction should not be to swat it and take its life because it's taken our blood. That's what it does. And I think we need to adapt to this thought process. You're probably all much more in tune with this, and have been raised in a society that this plays a very big part. But I know a lot of young people I speak to who are from Jain families seem to have forgotten that there are 5 tenets, very important tenets of Jainism, that we all should live by. And we try desperately to uphold that. And being a sanctuary, we tend to focus on ahimsa, of the non-violent part, because everybody who comes to us has come from a violent life. We offer a life of care to anybody who makes it here, from birth to their transition to when they leave their body. Over the years, we've had a number of cows who have been on their way to a slaughterhouse in calf. So they're carrying their baby and they're going to be killed, which will also take the life of the baby. These days, we can't. When we were younger and when the laws were different, we could, if we got a phone call from a farmer's wife, we could drive alongside a livestock lorry and gesticulate madly and say to the driver, pull over, and then talk to him and say, please, could we take the animal that you have inside the truck, or the animals that you have inside the truck? You're going to have to pay to kill them, because the cow on the left here was, let me think, 16 years old when she had that calf. And that is why they were going to kill her, because she worked in dairy and she always gave birth to bull calves. So they'd had enough of her. And she was one of the final cows that we were able to save from a livestock truck. They had to, in those days, pay to kill cull cows. Nowadays, the government has changed everything and farmers are actually paid when they want to kill a cow. So we have to find other ways of saving life, and we do it. We tend to treat the residents here, whether they're cows, sheep, pigs, birds, the wildlife also, as many people would treat humans. We serve them. We offer palliative care when they get to the point that they're ready to leave their bodies. Those who are born here, like Nataraj on the left, they'll never hear a harsh word from us. They'll never be hit with a stick. They'll never know violence. Some animals come here at a stage of their lives where they're with us a few moments, a few hours, a few days, a few weeks, a few months. And in whatever time they spend with us, as they try to recover from what's happened to them, or they're at the end of their lives, they'll be loved and they'll be cared for. It's the way we do things. We don't know any different. All we can do is serve, make them comfortable, and make them feel safe and secure. With the wildlife, we have to play a very different role with wildlife because they're wild. That is their nature. That is their right. We can't bring everything onto the sanctuary, but we have a herd of deer who think the sanctuary is their home. They come out of the woodland that we serve, and they come and lie in the pastures. And they have been doing it ever since we've been here on the land. There is one stag who every spring blesses us with the sight of that year's fawns. He will bring them up through one of the woodland paths, and he will stand by the barn, the big barn at the bottom of the yard. And it is very, very unusual because stags have nothing to do with young normally. But every year since I think 2 years we've been here when the first time it happened. And he will allow us sight of that year's young and stand still and bring all the babies. And then he will turn his beautiful antlers and he will take them off down the path again. So we're duty bound to run through the forest at night when the hunters come, when they want to shoot the deer who live here, when they want to chase them, when they want to kill the mothers who are in calf. And we tend to run through the woods at night the first time we hear a shot, and we have high-powered torches. And this is two late middle-aged people doing this, which is slightly crazy, but it's our duty to protect. They live here. They are part of our greater family. It's something that has to be done, and it works wonderfully, because if we can get the lights shining in the right direction, the hunters can't shoot. And they're not really permitted to shoot on our land, but they tend to think at nighttime they can come on and do what they want to do and take the life of one of the creatures who lives here. We don't go as far as the Bishnoi tribes in Rajasthan by giving our lives. I think probably either of us would if push came to shove. I hope it never happens, because I would like to serve a little while longer. And we do the same with the badgers and the foxes. We have a myriad of birds here. We have beautiful owls. When we first came here, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. It was desolate and dead in the forest because so many people had been hunting, shooting, and killing. It took time for them to realize, I think, that life was safe with us being here. And now there are just so many birds. When we hear things that are saying that the bird population is diminishing, it isn't here at Hugletts. It's growing. It's as if word is going round that if somebody comes to live here, they'll be safe. We have wild bird populations who come back year in, year out. The Canada geese come and have their babies in one of our fields. And we don't use that field until they've had their babies and raised them and gone. With all the wonderful life that we have here, my father taught me the importance of giving back the good. He always said, give back the good that you receive, and that good will keep coming back to you. So as he was responsible for introducing me to the love of my life, Bharat, India, I tend to go home, as I call it, and offer seva there at different panjrapoles, at different goshalas. I've worked with widows of farmers who've committed suicide and found themselves in a situation where they either have to go to the city and prostitute themselves or find out how to live in their villages when they're ostracized by others. I've worked with them in teaching them how to plow with oxen, which is very unusual for India. It's normally a man pastime. And granted, we had hoots of laughter from the men sitting around, especially the older men, as I tucked my sari in my underwear and walked barefoot in the fields, plowing with a single ox. But the women learned how to do it, which taught them self-sufficiency. They could plant seeds, they could till land. They had the goba for fertilizer. And 3 or 4 villages that I worked in, there are now some very powerful ladies who are raising their children without recourse to their families or their husbands' families. And they have nothing to answer for. So the villages that were not particularly kind to them now have only good to say about them. The photo on the left is a wonderful memory of mine. I do seva for a place called Care for Cows in Vrindavan. It was, until he left his body, run by the most incredible devotee called Karmarupa, who found himself homing hundreds of cows. He would jump on his bicycle and shout abuse at the butchers who were taking oxen to the slaughterhouse. But in this particular day, he asked me if I would help walk some bulls, oxen, and cows across the desert to a place just by Vrindavan called Belvan, where I think it was Lakshmi Devi performed austerities in the hope that she could join Krishna and the gopis. But we walked across the desert with our feet burning, and this is where we ran down the hill with this particular ox and another lady devotee here. And we just ran into the Jamna and cooled our burning feet and knees and arms. And we swam him across and we went back for the others. It took us about 7 hours, but it was the most worthwhile experience. I go back every year. I haven't been for 2 years because of COVID-19. I tend to go wherever I'm asked to go to serve cows, normally places where they don't have recourse to veterinarians, or they're not particularly good at caring for cows. The little cow on the right was hit by a rickshaw, and the driver went off and left her with a broken leg. So this was first examination before we got some guttering and some bandage and mended her leg. And within a few weeks, she was walking again. And I think about a month later, they were able to take the bandage and the guttering off her leg, and she walked well again. I was, about 10 years ago, before my hair went white. I was so pleased to be invited to talk about the most wonderful lady who was the daughter of a millionaire. We're going back to around the 60s. She was the daughter of a millionaire. She married into a family of farmers. She would spin her own saris from khadi, and she would drive an ox cart. And she set up so many places that were for the benefit of cows, not just goshalas, but she set up a hospital where they created cow medicine. And in fact, at this time at the hospital, they were treating AIDS with cow medicine. So that's from distilled mutra. I was asked to talk about her. I knew her son because she was killed by butchers. Her ox cart was driven off the road, and she was killed by butchers. They beat her head and left her for dead. And she achieved so much. I also got to meet some of the followers of Gandhiji. The man on the left was in his late 80s, and he was barely able to walk. He was at the salt protests with Gandhi. So as I say, I give back. I'm blessed. Even in India, I don't like awards, I don't like recognition, but this was a Vinoba Bhave, a celebration for the Mataji who saved, I think, 3 million cows in her lifetime before she was killed. So I was honored to be able to talk about her, and also honored to meet these wonderful people. Hugletts Wood is known especially for its care of special needs animals and birds. On the right is the most beautiful little bullock called Nipper Jackson. He was born with retracted front legs and seriously damaged tendons. It couldn't be operated on. And we brought a man over. We raised funds to bring a man from America to make leg supports for him, braces. And he was with us about 5.5 years. And he left his body last Saturday because with the COVID-19 problem, the man couldn't come back to make new braces for him. He wasn't able to travel. He wasn't able to get here. And so Nipper outgrew those braces. And unfortunately, his legs gave way the Wednesday before last. And on Saturday night, he left his body. But in those years, he had a rich life. He was able to get around. He wasn't in pain. He lived the life of a normal bullock. It's not ours to say that he should live 20 years or 10 years. We accept that whatever time they have has to be made the most comfortable, the most peaceful, the most gentle. And that is all we're here to do. The sheep in the middle photograph is Oshin. He jumped a hedge and broke the bottom part of his leg. We will do whatever we can to make life good for whoever is here. It doesn't mean necessarily that life will be extended, but we do what we can. The little tiny bird on the left was a little bit damaged, and his mother, as nature is so cruel sometimes, especially with birds, his mother wouldn't have anything to do with him. So we brought him in, we cared for him, we fed him with a dropper, and now he is the most wonderful, amazing cockerel. Looking to the future, this little tiny creature here is called Adge. When he was little, he loved big hay bales, and he would love to walk around big hay bales just taking hay. We, as with everywhere else in this society, we're very vulnerable to the horribleness of some people. And in October, we brought 20 cows over from Ireland who were in the pound waiting to be slaughtered. Nobody in Ireland would take them. Nobody in England would take them. And they really were at their last chance. So we fundraised and we brought them here. Two of them were in calf. And one of them gave birth to the most beautiful little blind calf on the 1st of April. 5 weeks later, somebody, or someone, some people maybe, went into the barn that we were renting nearby, because we don't have spaces. We've grown. We now don't have enough buildings for the residents. So we rented a barn that was quite close to us, thinking we can go backwards and forwards and everybody will be safe. Sadly, either the person or persons unknown, as the police call them, went into the barn. They must have seen the mother with her baby, and they trapped her horns under a gate so she couldn't get up, and then proceeded to jump on her neck and break her trachea, so she asphyxiated. It was particularly poignant to us because she had a calf, the first one that she was going to be able to keep, and then her life was taken. So now we're actually saying we're going to build another barn here. On Monday, we're going to post a fundraiser for this. If you could mention it to people who might be interested, I would be very, very grateful. Once again, Matthew and I are going to build the barn. It's going to cost in materials £12,500. We have already started to plan the building. We'll do it ourselves over summer. We can do everything except fund it. We've already had 2 or 3 people contribute money to that appeal. And as I say, we'll be launching a Gofundme appeal to everybody who likes us and supports us, in the hope that they will just donate a little to help us protect the 20 cows that we need to bring home. We eventually, hopefully, we've been dealing with a charitable status now for nearly a year. And once we've got that, then it's our intention to get funding for more land, so that we can keep expanding the beauty of this place, that we can offer home to more animals, that we can have more people come and visit, that we can just keep Hugletts Wood trundling along, being as beautiful and wonderful as it is. It's been 26 years, nearly 27 years of my life that I have been blessed to serve the animals here, to live this way. I'm hoping it's my destiny that I have another 27. I would like that very much, but what will be, will be. But no matter how long we keep going for, until we have to hand over to others, which will happen one day, we will always have a place for any animal who's in need of sanctuary. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Wenda. I'm actually speechless as to what to say, because it's been such sort of touches the heart listening to your journey. What we call in Jain is called sukshma. So sukshma means minute. And, essentially listening to you, you've essentially looked at the minuteness of everything, from your lifestyle to the ecosystem, to the energy levels, where you source your energy from. So you really sort of, we, as you rightly said, we in the West lead a very superficial lifestyle. We gloss over the surface, but listening to you, it just seems, you've really looked at every minute aspect of your lifestyle. She was sending a message, Wenda, that can you bring children to your farm, and when are the open days to bring children across to Hugletts farm?
Of course. We're very strange people in that we expect parents to explain to children that they need to respect the animals here. It's a very good exercise for them to come. We have lots of children who come throughout summer. The open days, we have 4 a year. The 11th of July, the tickets have completely sold out now. We ticket the events simply because we need to know how many people are coming. So we have adequate parking for them. We have adequate toilet facilities for them. We're able to put on enough, entertainment is the wrong word, but things to do for the number of people here, and also for food. because we have a pop-up vegan cafe. It serves food without onions, without roots. We have food for every palate, really. But we always tend, at least 2 of our dishes or 2 of our foods are without onions and without roots. So we've got the 25th of July, we have the 8th of August and the 22nd of August. And all you have to do is go onto our Facebook page, look at the events tab, and then I think there's a link to get the ticket booking form on each of the events tabs. But it's a wonderful thing for children to actually have contact with farm animals. A lot of Jain groups come to us throughout the year. If a group of people want to come and it's kind of more than 20 or 30, we will set aside a specific day. We have a way of being able to get our seva done and then spend time with visitors so that we can explain to people about each of the different animals. The children have actual contact with the animals, and it is a very, very important thing that really children, if you get children at a very young age who have an interest in cow protection, in vegetarianism, veganism, I think it's something that you can actually seed in their minds and their hearts, and they will grow up to be gentle, caring people.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So is it only on Facebook website, or can I go on that website?
Well, you can, if it's at the moment it's just on Facebook because we've taken our website down to create a new one. But if you email me, I can send you booking forms and information.
Okay.
If you want to know about open days.
Yes.
I can
I would
also
like to know the email address.
Of course. I will ask Rajiv if that's okay to put it out. Is that possible, Rajiv?
That's
just
right.
put my email address down, and then I will respond to you as soon as I hear from you.
Thank you very much. It was really very, very interesting.
Thank you so much.
It would be really a lot to learn from there for an adult like me, or also for the children, my granddaughters, whom I'm interested in to bring in, and maybe some other children, so that they can see how real life can be lived.
Yes,
it's not just, yeah.
Sorry, I sorry to interrupt you. I do apologize. I just think it's important for people to see firsthand that there's no hardship. We have everything we need, and when I talk to groups or when I talk to people, they feel sorry for us, and yet we do without nothing that isn't important. Everything we have is what we want. We just do without nothing, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Wenda. I think Terence, he's raised his hand. Terence, do you have a question to ask?
Yes, I do. I'm a no-dig gardener and a vegan. I'm very interested to know how you cope with, when you've got a vegetable patch, how you cope with all the invertebrates and so on, which we would probably rather not have. For example, slugs and snails, particularly. This morning they wreak havoc on my particular plot, and this morning a man said to me he would offer me slug pellets, and I thought, well, I can't really accept that, sorry, but even so I just have to put up with all these things, devastating me. It's raining now and they'll be out again in a minute.
We use copper bands.
Oh yes, yeah.
Or also copper sulfate is quite good. But the thing is, it's meant to be in liquid form, and I can't bear the thought of drowning anything. Right. But what we use, which is very useful, if you remember back to the start of the talk, there were 2 grey containers that had pipes coming out of them where we were making plant food. We also make a preparation that doesn't kill, it deters. So if we spray this preparation that we make here over over the vegetables or around the vegetables, then the slugs and the invertebrates tend to go somewhere else, and they'll eat hedges rather than our vegetables.
Right.
But they're alive. They're still living, but they just don't want to come to the vegetable patch,
Right.
which I like. I think that's wonderful. It's
Yes, indeed.
harmless.
Yeah.
But I think, I think the other thing to realize, we have a polytunnel, and I was busy planting nasturtium seeds, and I think it was peas, and I always leave a little. I always sow a little extra in case somebody gets hungry and decides they're going to help themselves to our food, which is, it's fine. It's, to me, I should be doing that. I should be responsible for it. But there was one mouse who would let me plant all the seeds, and I would put them undercover, and he or she would find a way in to the boxes that we had where the seed boxes would go. And he would not only, or she would not only take the seeds out, but they'd flatten the soil after doing so. So I was completely unaware of what was happening until nothing grew. And the same little chap decided he'd take our melons one year, but go into them from the underneath. So they were still going through the throes of growing. And it was only when I went to harvest one that I found it was so light with a big hole in the bottom. What we did with him was to actually, we put goba, cow dung, around the boxes. Granted, it might not be vegan. Although we're vegan, we don't mind using cow dung for things because they come from the protected cows. So, but we used to put cow dung around the seed boxes, just like a wall, a cow dung wall, and he wouldn't go anywhere near it, or she wouldn't go anywhere near it.
Well, that's interesting. I had some rats that threw out. I have a pony dung in my compost heap, and the rats came to live there, and they threw out all the pony dung. So maybe that's a lesson for
They
me.
don't like dung, but try getting some cow dung, some cow dung from cows that are not going to be killed.
Yes.
And just lay it around in a little wall.
Right.
It might work with slugs. I don't know. I've not tried it with slugs.
I'll try it.
But the best of luck.
Thank you. I look forward to coming down there sometime.
Oh, do you would love it? You'd love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
I mean, we have, being a farm, we will have wild rats. In fact, I raised 3 wild rats when their mother ran off and left them. And they lived in a little house until one decided he was going to be free to be wild again. But it's very, very difficult. I tend to move all food out. We have a separate kitchen other than the one in the house where we store the food, simply because it's been specially built to be rodent proof, because they're free. They live in the woodland, and they come to spy on us, and they come to see what we're doing, and they come to see if we've got anything that's at all delicious to eat, and if we have, then we're finished. And also with the birds, they will come and take the remainder of the bird food. So we can go out at night with a torchlight and see maybe 10 or 11 of them eating the leftover bird food. But I think in a city, you see, you also have the added problem that it's not you being dirty. It could be your neighbors just leaving food out that would attract them. And then when they're in the dustbins or at the neighbor's house, they'll think, I'll go and have a look somewhere else and see if there's anything. But I think the kindest thing to do is just to persevere with whatever you're doing and respect their lives. It's not our right to take life, no matter how difficult things are. We just have to persevere in the hope that they'll get bored with being brushed up in flour and they'll go somewhere else.
But what can you do, without harming them? What can you do?
There are so many of us now that there is no space for so many different species. We're building at a rate to accommodate so many people that we're taking so many different habitats away. Every time a housing estate is built, then so many mammals and so many invertebrates are displaced. Where do they go? There's going to come a time when there's nowhere for them.
Thank you.
So
Wenda.
I can tell you how to get rid of ants, and that is painlessly, and that is to have a jar with the leavings of jam or honey, and you leave it where you think the ants are coming in, and they will immediately divert to your jar, and they will clean the pot up and they won't bother to come into the kitchen. We've done this a couple of times and it works. So something very sweet like jam or honey is, and then they won't bother to come into your kitchen. They will go into the pot, and which is preferably outside the door, and then they won't come in at all. That's my tip.
Thank you. When there's one more question was, so when you say it's a vegan animal sanctuary, so is it actually, do you provide vegan food to the animals, or is it just you are just following a vegan diet?
All the animals here are vegan. Obviously, they're herbivores. The pigs are omnivores, but we don't feed them anything but vegan food. The dog, we have one dog here. She's vegan. The cats are slightly difficult because they're hunters. So we give them whatever we have to eat. We supplement their food with yeast, but they still hunt. So occasionally they'll come in with the remains of a rat in their mouths, or a mouse, or a bird. Our vets say if we fed them meat, they probably wouldn't hunt. But the fact that we have to have meat here, I do believe, quite honestly, that cats should be allowed to follow their mode of passion, where they are able to eat meat, because they don't survive well without it. They don't live long. It's a very difficult thing. Our vegan vet many years ago said, do not have cats unless you can feed them what they need. And that resonated with me, and I thought, I wonder if we're doing the right thing. So we just accept their nature is to kill, and they strangely enough, they don't harm any of the babies. So if we get birds born on the sanctuary, they don't harm them, but they seem to wander out into the woodland, and anything that moves is possible food for them. And but other than that, yeah, everything's vegan.
And how has COVID-19 impacted you running the sanctuary? Has there been any impact of this past 2 years?
It's well, obviously we lost an awful lot of income because we couldn't have open days last year. They provide quite a lot of our income. We're not sure if we're going to be able to host the first open day this year, because the government are now saying they could delay the fourth stage of getting back to normal, and that would mean that we wouldn't be able to have more than 30 people here. We get 150 people on open days. Well, we limit them to 150 people because we used to have 300 people turn up, which is why we started ticketing. But it has impacted. We haven't been able to sell the things that we make. There have been no shows. Right. So we've lost all the show income. So the income that we normally generate has been replaced by what savings we had for various projects on the farm. So we've not been able to do the projects. We've not had the income. We've had to use all that money just to keep going. And as you said yourself, I really do not like begging for money. I find it offensive. It's my ego. I should really garner all my humility and say, it's not for Matthew, it's not for me, it's for the animals. Please, will you support us? And I've always thought, if people like what we're doing, they will donate to us. Maybe I shouldn't think that way, but we've always tried to bring into the sanctuary as much as we possibly can. And until last year, it worked. You know, where people would donate if they wanted to. We weren't demanding Lakshmi from people. We were just saying, if you like what we're doing and you want to support this initiative, if you believe it's right, then please donate to us. And I will still say that. But it's been very, very hard, very hard. And I think what has been harder is that a lot of places, sanctuaries such as this, but who function differently on a different level, have been saying to people, you've got to give us money or we're going to have to kill the animals. I would rather leave my body screaming than say that to anyone. We would never harm anyone here. So we've cut back ourselves, so that the money that I earn that would keep us has gone into the animals. But then again, we live very simply, so it hasn't mattered. We've just been living on dal.
Sorry, Wendy, just a quick question. Have you not tried to apply for government funding of any sort?
We've registered. This has been a good lesson to me. We registered over a year ago. They wrote back and said they're giving priority to COVID-19 charities and Black Lives Matter charities applications, and that they would get round to us in due course. And when they did, they questioned a lot of the things that we do as not falling into the departments of their charity criteria. So we had to change a few things, thinking, well, we'll do whatever it takes to fit in. Certain things we refuse to change because that is the nature of the sanctuary. And so they finally said, yes, we'll get charity status. But even with charity status, we're not what's the word? We're not able to claim support. It's very, very difficult. I think a charity is a rule unto itself, or a law unto itself, in that it should be self-funding through donation, and that there's very little government funding. I mean, even human charities, you know, where they're looking after terminally ill children, can't get support from the government.
Yeah,
it's all
very,
down
very
to the
sad,
donors
really.
and supporters.
Yeah, because I mean, the other thing is the lottery money as well. There's always a portion that's given out, isn't it, to various different charities.
But
So
not
I'm just surprised.
not to animal charities.
Yeah.
That's very sad, yeah, Wenda. One other question, Wenda, have you come across any dilemmas because of limited resources of either capacity or funding? You've had to actually turn away animals, or give it?
About 6 weeks ago, we were asked to take two bigger calves. We took 3 little ones who were going to be shot on the 22nd of March. And then about 3 weeks after that, we were asked to take 2 older calves. And because we haven't got the building done here, we couldn't squeeze them in. I even thought about buying a large shed, putting them in there. But as Matthew said, you can't keep them in a shed. They need light. They need to be able to move around. So for the first time in 26 years, we had to say no to taking the 2 calves. But I did find somewhere for them. I couldn't sleep. I just couldn't accept that for the first time in our history, we'd had to turn away 2 calves. So, but they're homed and they're with people who love them. So that people, I think my godbrother, who runs Ahimsa Milk, he set up Friends of Ahimsa Milk, and people donate £9 a month, which is nothing in this day and age. But because of the vast number of them, he was able to fund a land purchase through that because it was regular income. I was talking to the accountant a couple of weeks ago about looking forward to, once we're a charity and getting funding for we want to buy 192 acres of land next door to us. And the nice thing with it is there's permission to build a building, a house, in fact. And I wanted to turn that into a retreat so people could come and just spend time there. Obviously, they'd pay for the privilege of it, but it would be a means of self-sufficiency again for the sanctuary.
Yeah, exactly.
And he actually said, listen, get the charity registration number through first, because there are lots of places we can go to for money. And I mean, he's ever the optimist, but it would be easier to get funding if we were a charity, because there are other charities who will give to charities for capital expenses, and obviously buying land is a capital expense.
Yeah, so, exactly. So there are a lot of venues of raising some sort of funding, you know, especially if you're struggling so much. I mean, there's just some ideas. I mean, I was just thinking.
It's wonderful. Thank you very much. It really has. I will look at it.
Thank you very much, Wenda, for that. I think almost coming to 12:30.
Okay.
So if anyone hasn't got any other questions, then we'll sort of put it to a close. And it's once again, I'd really like to have a heartfelt thanks to you, Wenda, for actually agreeing, because I know you also are very busy, and for you to make the time to talk to us. In fact, it was also a pleasure for you to come last weekend in Professor Francois.
It was so nice, yes.
That's right. And we'll definitely pass on the information to our members and circulate it across. And we really wish you all the very best, and really hope that, your dreams sort of do come true, and, you're doing such a wonderful job. So whatever support we as a community can provide would be a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Omaram.
Omaram.
Hare Hum